The post-movie era of Generation 1 Transformers is really defined by how experimental it was. Obviously, the first 2 years of the franchise were carryovers from Diaclone and Micro Change, and those two toy lines had very similar design staff, so they had a unifying aesthetic even though they were technically two separate toy lines. From 1986 and beyond, virtually every single release is just Hasbro and Takara throwing ideas at the wall and seeing what stuck. Headmasters, Power Masters, Target Masters, hell, even Micro Masters and Action Masters. All different ideas that Hasbro and Takara were juggling just to see what worked. And even within these ideas and experiments, there are separate little branches of divergent evolution. And one of the weirder ones is the Triple Changer Headmasters, the Horrorcons. This is 1987's Decepticon Snapdragon, a Triple Changer Headmaster Horrorcon. That's a lot of specialties for this brutish Decepticon warrior. Now, considering this is the United States version, that means instead of a little Cybertronian, Snapdragon's headmaster is a little man, a Nebulan by the name of Kronk, which is a terrible name. It either sounds like he should be hanging out with Lil Wayne, or that's the sound of you stubbing your toe on a metal filing cabinet. Actually, his foreign names are a little cooler. In Kami, his name is Tachun, which is Russian for brawler, and in France, his name is Kronk, which is even better because it makes me think he's voiced by Patrick Warburton.
Oh yeah, I thought we'd start off with soup and a light salad, and then see how we feel after that.
Not the dinner.
Kronk looks a little weird compared to his Headmaster contemporaries. He's got a lot of extra stuff hanging off of him, and that's because he has to pull double duty in one of the alternate modes as well as being a robot mode head. While Snapdragon's in jet mode, Kronk can just go into this little fuselage area, which opens like a coffin. I guess it's extra spooky to fit the Horrorcon vibe. In jet mode, Snapdragon's the spookiest aircraft of all, a spy plane. He turns into a slate gray, purple, and turquoise pseudo SR-71 Blackbird. Considering the SR-71 Blackbird's one of the most iconic aircraft of the Cold War era, up there with the F-14 Tomcat and the F-15 Eagle, Snapdragon's alt mode is clearly inspired by, but legally distinct, kind of like the Blackbird that the X-Men ride around in. I do like the pseudo-futuristic flourishes on the Blackbird alt mode, as it does give Snapdragon the vibe of having a proper Cybertronian alt mode. But you know what? No matter how stylish that jet is, stealth is for cowards. That's why Snapdragon has a second alternate mode. Flipping the entire jet mode upside down and backwards, Snapdragon transforms into a vicious Kaiju. This is where the quote-unquote Horrorcon element comes in, as outside of the original cassettes, these are some of the earliest Beast alternate modes that we see in the Decepticon ranks. Now, Snapdragon's, Dragon mode is a little strange, honestly. He's very lumpsome and chunky and has a massive tail. Honestly, he kinda reminds me of Shin Godzilla about 40 years early. And this is where the dual functionality of the Headmaster comes in, as Kronk not only turns into the robot mode head, but the dragon head as well. That's why he has all these little teeth and protrusions hanging off of his robot mode.
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
Admittedly, it's a strange idea and executed equally strangely, but I do think Kronk is a little more dynamic as two different heads than his contemporary Ape Face. Both those heads are very blocky, whereas at least Kronk here changes the silhouette from robot to Kaiju mode. And speaking of, we might as well work our way into Snapdragon's robot mode. Now, as a robot, Snapdragon is very standard 80s Decepticon. He's big, he's chunky, he's bold with blacks, teals, purples, and slate grays. And he fits in with his contemporaries, whether that's Skullcruncher, Mindwipe, Sixshot, or Galvatron. I like the use of the Blackbird engines as the robot mode arms. It gives Snapdragon a pretty unique silhouette amongst the Decepticon ranks, especially with the large shoulder pylons, as well as the rear fin stabilizers hanging off of his wrists. Most of the time on Jet Transformers, wings and stabilizers are relegated to the back of the figure, sometimes hidden, sometimes flared out. So it's pretty unique to see this placement on Snapdragon, plus it kind of gives him the appearance of wearing flared cuffs. Give this guy 2 purple rifles and altogether you've got a pretty brutish Decepticon ready to tussle.
Alright, soldier, I got special clearance. I'm with the top secret branch of the government. So if you don't mind, we have a mission to get back to.
Sir,
Huh?
this ID expired 6 months ago.
Now, considering Snapdragon came out pretty late in the game, he didn't get a lot of play in media. He did appear in the Marvel UK and Marvel US comics, where he was mostly Decepticon background filler. Kronk got a little bit of attention in the Marvel US and UK comics with the Headmasters miniseries. There he's depicted as Mo Zarek's dim-witted but incredibly strong bodyguard, I guess the more things change, the more they stay the same. That's just a universal constant with Kronks.
On the driving portion, you total every car but the one you were driving. On the pistol range, you refused to use a gun. And, yeah, here's my favorite. On the written, you drew little guy with wings from the Led Zeppelin records.
Icarus. So, what are you trying to tell me here, little man, that you don't like Zepp?
Snapdragon's most memorable outing is in the final miniseries for the original Sunbow Generation 1 cartoon, that being the Rebirth. The off-malign Rebirth goes a mile a minute because Hasbro and Sunbow are just shoving tons and tons of new characters on the screen with little to no breathing room. And of course, the Headmasters, Target Masters, and Power Masters are among them, so we see a crew of Autobots and Decepticons make their way to the planet Nebulos, and joining our intrepid Autobots are Daniel and Spike. Now, in the time skip between pre-movie and post-movie Generation 1, Spike went from friendly, everyday Oregonian to Space Casanova and Ambassador to the Stars. See? Those are your career opportunities when you stick with the Autobots. Joining Spike in the dangerous field of exopolitics are his wife Carly and his son Daniel. Now, Daniel had a full adventure with the Transformers in the 1986 Transformers the movie. And beyond that, he just kind of hangs out and pals around with them, even in incredibly dangerous situations, and this is among them. As the Autobots meet the native Nebulans for the first time, they are ambushed by the Decepticons, among them Snapdragon and Apeface. During the battle, Snapdragon goes straight for RC, and Daniel tries to help for what little good that does, and for his troubles, Snapdragon just straight up mauls the little guy. Tosses him around like a ragdoll and drops him like a sack of potatoes, and I'm sure you can guess, getting mauled by a robot space dragon is pretty bad for your health, so Daniel's straight up on death's door. Now, if Ratchet and Wheeljack were here, he'd have the best medical care possible. They took care of Spike all right when he was Autobot X, but the issue is, they're also both dead, and Brainstorm's here, who is, generously speaking, an amoral, unethical crackpot scientist. So, to fix Daniel, RC volunteers herself for the Headmaster process and turns her head into a full life support unit for Daniel. And from that point on, it is never addressed again in the Rebirth miniseries, and not even brought up in the Japanese Headmasters continuation because, well, they ignore the Rebirth. The Rebirth never happened in Japan, and thank God, because I have no idea what the Witwicky family dynamic is like with RC added to the mix. There was actually a proposed Headmaster RC toy, a pink and white repaint of Chrome Dome, potentially with a new head, we don't know. Honestly, I'm okay that that got canceled. I don't think it would have been a good figure of RC, nor a good representation of her. And you know what? We finally got a G1 RC proper through the Takara Missing Link toy line, so that can finally fill in the space in your 86 movie shelf. Oh wait, this is a video about Snapdragon, not RC. Look, G1 Snapdragon is alright. He's a good Decepticon crowd filler. He's got a great silhouette and a pretty strong presence. He looks like he should be Galvatron's bodyguard. And even though I don't know if it's particularly successful, I do like the idea of the HorrorCon triple changer, where the Headmaster not only becomes the head of the robot mode, but also of the beast mode. As silly as it sounds, I kind of wish Snapdragon was remade back in the early days of Generations, like the 2008 to 2012 line, where they really strive for more realistic alt modes. It would have been cool to see a somewhat realistic SR-71 Blackbird alike in Snapdragon colors, with maybe the nose art evoking the original Dragon mode, and then you'd have a really cool Generation-style robot mode. That's just my opinion. And when it comes to G1 Snapdragon, he's definitely an interesting oddity in the grand scheme of the Headmasters. I don't think he's as successful as the standard Decepticon Headmasters, but he still has a really strong presence, and he fills in the Decepticon ranks pretty well.